This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Hello, my name's Harriton Watko. Welcome to our program. Gee, I am hearing an echo. I wonder if you are. Okay, the title or the topic of this TV show is called Disruption. Why is that? In innovation or in today's technologies, every innovator is called a disruptor, be it for economics, technical, whatever, be it the gadgets, communication, entertainment, they're all called disruptions. Why? Because they disrupt. They take away from the status quo and introduce a lot of things. I remember when I was in school, when the calculator first came out. Wow, terrific. I said, wala nang long division, long multiplication. And to me, that was just fantastic. And then, of course, the TV was coming out, and the black and white turned into color, and I saw the Beatles for the first time in the Ed Sullivan Show. I was so disrupted. What a world, what a world. And then today, we carry the TVs in our pockets, in our watches. We talk of the world issues. We see, I mean, look at the Iraq war with America. We actually saw it on live TV. Today, we've gone even further, be it for the Tesla cars, the self-driving cars, China going to the moon, if not Russia following very close by, gas and economic affairs that affect, they become all interdependent and independent. But if you will notice, the very first question I asked our guests before I introduce them to you, can we say that America has always been the initial disruptor in this world? Can we say that they are the reason why there's a lot of changes? Sure, we've got Silicon Valley. We've got all the ideas coming from America, made in the USA and all of that. But today in world politics, world economics, world security, foreign affairs, interrelation, interaction between country to country. I mean, we just saw Kim Jong-un. God knows why and how this guy obviously turned around very quickly. There are many issues, many reasons, and many things we need to understand. With us, we've got Ambassador Joe Romero, former Ambassador Joe Romero, with the Philippine Counsel of Foreign Affairs. Is that correct, Joe?
Foreign Relations.
Foreign Relations. And we've got Professor Gil Santos, the President of Futuristic Society. Incidentally, both gentlemen were with me when we first started GNN. Is that right, Joe?
That's right.
Do you remember,
Right,
Gil?
yeah.
We
2
all
years and a half.
Yeah, 2 years and a half. Gil was on for 2.5 years. Joe was on for at least a year.
Yes.
You handled foreign relations. We started this TV network.
Yes.
About 8-9 years ago. Is this correct?
Yes.
Something like and it's still on air, and you can still see my ugly face talking to you, making you gulo. That's one for disruption. Gentlemen, pag-usapan natin today's disruptions. First, the Singapore meet. Sino nanalo? Si Kim Jong-un or Donald Trump? Who would like to tackle that first?
Okay.
Ikaw, Gil.
Yeah. Depends where you stand. You see, Trump got criticized domestically in the U.S.
Yes, yes.
saying that the critics and even media said, well, Kim won.
Oh, yes.
3-2.
3-2.
The score was 3-2, remember? Yeah. And on the other hand, when you look at the North Korean side, oh, Kim came back as a hero. Number
Yes.
one, he was recognized as an equal of the United States.
He was.
He was.
He
So he was given that.
So lesson number one, build your nuclear armament and then stand up to America.
Yes.
Oh, di
Yeah.
ba? So tama ginagawa ng
Yeah.
Iran. Okay,
No,
go
not
ahead.
only that. Kim now believes that his nuclear armament is his only security blanket against any other disruption
But he's
by
always
the
thought
Americans.
of that. He's always been that. The Hermit Kingdom has always built it, and now that he's built it, lagot kay lahat.
That
Di ba?
is why
Yeah.
the Americans were saying, the critics of Trump were saying Kim won because he is not going to, according to them, he is not going to let go that nuclear
He just signed the
armament.
deal.
Yes.
So he's going to be like his father, his grandfather,
Yeah.
who abrogated the deal, who went against the deal. He signed a contract with
but
the
I
world,
say,
and he just went against it, di ba?
No, but I say it has to be watched very carefully now because the agreement that they signed were so vague, so general, and you know what they say? The devil is in the detail.
Correct.
Now the hard
Now,
work
hang
comes
on.
back.
One last
Yeah.
point on that, which is either way, Kim Jong-un has released the tension of a nuclear war, of which we in the Philippines could get very much become collateral damage.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, Trump is up for a Nobel Prize. Joe, ikaw.
Yeah, well, go back to disruption, actually.
Yes.
The U.S. is a disruptor. I think the U.S. became an Atlantic power after the Second World War. It was a Pacific power before that. And for years, it's been the Atlantic thing.
But isn't that the reason why they built NAFTA and everything was because after the war, all these concessions were given to all these world countries. And today, again, Trump said, hey, tama na, kami natalo dito. But go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so it became the Sixth Fleet, controlled the Mediterranean.
Correct, the
Some
seventh.
fleet thing through Clark and through Subic thing became power. The winners in this last PBA game,
If only it could be just the PBA, go ahead.
it's not the Rocket Man.
It's not.
The Rocket Man is just he represents actually this is like a new chess game. There are more players than so the U.S. influence is winning. It's been winning since last 2 years, and now there are new players thing. So the biggest winner in this game are two countries, China and South Korea. Okay.
South, not north, south.
The loser is
So-
Japan and United States. Okay.
Please elaborate.
Yeah.
Please elaborate. Okay, so Korea, from being the 13th biggest economic power today, is going to become, in our calculation, the 7th biggest
Wow,
economic
that's a five-country
power.
job.
Yeah, 50 million South Koreans plus 25 million North Koreans, bigger than Spain, UK, France, and nothing.
So we can see the euro going down.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the South Korea is going to take over the North Korean economy using the coolie labor of North Korea, $2 a day.
Pang China.
So you think of the effect of that against Japan. Talk about the Philippine market, Hyundai versus Toyota. More productivity increases and and so forth and so on. Plus, even today, they're already competing in aid, they're competing in technology.
Which is all good for us, naman.
Exactly.
But to a certain extent, also good for the world.
Exactly. So
Diba?
we are also the winners.
Yes.
And ASEAN is going to be the winner
Yeah.
because the U.S. is probably going back to the Pacific, leaving Asia,
They're going back to
leaving
America.
a lot of Koreukis behind, and which relieves tension somewhat in the China
So-
Sea.
No, but
How-
I want
go ahead,
to
go ahead.
inject something
Yeah,
here.
please,
You know,
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
when the North and the South Korean economy are integrated, it's going to pose a threat to the Chinese economy itself. You know, because China has got this 1.3 billion people to feed. You see, let alone...
So that's an immediate market.
Yes.
Kasi they share a border.
Yes. Now, however, the South Korean and the North Korean economy will integrate, can now produce cheaper goods than China, you see, because of the low wages in the North, you know. And it will take some time before the North can catch up. That's what I'm saying.
But the story of East and West Germany, it brought down Germany
No,
for
but
about
that's
5,
different.
6 years. Di ba?
Let me just inject this, Harry.
Yeah, go ahead.
because, this will revive the Sino-Japanese competition.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Over Korea, remember?
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Over Korea. So China's influence in North Korea and Japanese influence in South Korea. And that. So they'll be competing, you know. The Chinese, of course, will be using the coolie labor of North Korea
Yes.
to, as Jill says, to advance their economic interests. China, Japan, and South Korea will have some sort of modus vivendi, you know, to counter that the influence, the northern influence in economics and politics and all of that.
So both Koreas will definitely lean towards China more rather than work within themselves
not
for an
necessarily.
independent country.
In fact,
I doubt that, really.
in fact, as Gil says, they might be competitive.
Yeah.
South Korea has got a high level of technology, et cetera. And I don't think that China can compete in Hyundai and
No.
Kia and everything else.
Hindi kaya.
At the moment, no. So they'll be competing. So I think what will happen is that China, Korea
Japan.
will probably try to get together and form a sort of an economic.
Don't forget Taiwan.
But is this good for the world?
It's good
yes.
for the world
The
because
Koreas, one Korea.
Yeah.
we'll have a multipolar world.
Yes.
So the European influence, the U.S. influence, and now
The Asia.
the Asian century, which will be led by these three players:
Yeah.
China, Japan, and thing. And all of them has got to engage ASEAN, which is their market. Okay?
But so far, they're actually not part of the ASEAN. They're
They
outside.
are.
No. Yes.
So
Yes.
the idea is
Plus
to merge
ASEAN,
in.
yeah.
So 10 plus 3.
Yes.
Kumbaga G6 plus 1.
Well, they actually have already this ASEAN
Meron na.
Plus. ASEAN Plus. This Eastern
But
Pacific
singularly,
region.
if that happens, we're going to be singularly the biggest market.
Yes.
600 million people of the ASEAN.
650.
650 million.
Yes.
You've got 75 of the Koreas. You've got 120 in Japan.
Yes.
And you got 1.3 B in
Yes,
China.
correct.
Tayo lang. We're half the world. We're
That's why,
more than half the
yeah,
world.
that's why. So, and the Asian century, as they call it.
That's why you call it the Asian century.
No, but
Yeah,
what's
this is
going to
the
happen here, what likely will happen is the West, Europe, and the United States will still control the biggest disruptor. That is innovation. That is modern technologies, you know, in age of information and communication.
Yes, yeah. Right now, there's
Drones, you know, drones and all that, you know.
between the UK and America, where all the innovations are originating.
Yes.
So, dito tayo natatalo.
But
Look at our plus, you know. What is the strength of the ASEAN? The strength of the ASEAN is the source of food. In, you know, with all this United Nations conventions.
They can have all the guns, but we have all the food.
Yes, and our seafood resources
Ah.
more than doubled, 6 times in the case of the Philippines. In fact, you know, and Indonesia.
So
and
we're in a
Malaysia.
good place.
yeah, but
The world is in a good place.
just going back to the technology, because the cutting edge right now is the U.S. But you know what's happening? There are about thousands of PhDs from China going to MIT and coming back, and that's why they were able to now they're in cyberspace. They're into a lot of things that was the monopoly of the U.S.
And you can expect more piracy
American
of the intellectual
education.
property rights.
Isang problema ng China yan eh.
Yes.
IPO, no?
So the monopoly of the U.S. is also waning, you know, in this area, and Europe, you know.
So, is America's leadership doing advantageous disruption, if we can put the two words together? Advantageous for them. Right now, he's still the hero in America. look, the dollar's going up, not because we're getting weak, but it's because they're getting stronger.
Yeah.
World economics perception of the banks and the financial system is pro-America at this
Yes.
point,
Yeah.
so to speak. The American laborer are all hailing Trump to the high heavens because he is now working inclusively. He's creating higher barriers of
And the
entry.
employment is high, really. Yeah.
High.
Yeah.
Everything
But,
is high. If you were an American today, you would be proud of Trump. That's why I don't understand when everyone's trying to pillar him. Di ba? Iba eh,
Well,
baliktad.
Harry-
Ganon din naman dito with Duterte. But go ahead.
Harry, I think America's going back to its splendid isolationism. You know, in the
Nice word. Sige, yeah,
in
please.
the pre-war, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It was, but it took a lot of things for him to join the Second World War.
All right. Yes, it
You
did.
know,
He was the last to come in.
Last to
and
come
the
in.
one to
As
finish it.
As it was in the First World War too.
Yes,
Also, you know,
exactly.
First World War also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. is self-contained. It exports only about 6% of its GDP.
Because it's
got a huge
consumerism.
market.
Yeah,
a
it's
thing.
consumerism.
It
vibrant.
doesn't rely on anyone. You know,
No,
it
it
can
doesn't.
survive on its own. And that's why the Republicans never wanted this engagement abroad and
Yes, yes,
all
yes,
of this
yes, yes.
venturism, all that sort of thing. You know, and that is coming back. I think Donald Trump represents that school of thought. The Republicanism, the
So you don't think he's nuts
isolationism.
like many Americans? No, because everybody thinks he is. I mean, he doesn't seem to understand,
That's why
so they
he's
say,
been able to-
foreign policy.
He's been able to balance, you know, the military-industrial complex and the Pentagon and the thing with the conservative American economic interests.
Why do they hate him so much as well?
Because
You
he's
know
a
it's
businessman.
50-50.
He's a businessman, and he's even a disruptor of the diplomatic protocols.
Oh, no. In diplomatic protocol tells you to be prudent, take it in stride, and don't make things vulnerable by coming up with one statements that are off. Correct? Di ba
Yeah,
ganun?
but what we can see is that he brought this art of the deal in that negotiating
art of the-
table.
Yeah.
And
Which
he
is
won.
what he promised in his election campaign.
Set aside the medal, the Pentagon.
So is he
the
right?
title.
Is he correct?
I think
is
so.
Trump a leader for today, the correct leader?
I think so. I mean, he's brought back America. The reason why they hate him is that he doesn't believe in LBGTs. He doesn't believe
No.
in the divorce, and
Very
all that sort
American.
of thing. He is very American. He went to a Catholic school, and his wife is Catholic from thing. And he brought back the chapel in the White House.
Yes,
and,
he did bring it back, didn't he?
did,
Nagulat din ako
he
dun
did.
eh. Okay.
So the CNN and the thing up in arms, you know. The CNN is the cutting edge of liberalism in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think what they have overlooked, his critics in the U.S. have overlooked, is the fact that he's basically a businessman, you know. Although they say, oh, well, he declared bankruptcy 3 times.
And he's come from a rich family.
Yeah.
Oh, he only
And he
started
still-
with $11 million. Kukunti
No.
lang naman eh. But go ahead.
he declared bankruptcy 3 times, and yet he emerged victorious.
He's
you know,
he's come back.
wealthier. He came back. No, and therefore the quality of that business quality in him comes out when it comes to diplomatic dealing. Because in reality, we all know, you talk soft, but you work hard, harder, you know, so that you can have your own options at the time you need it. This is national interest in any way you look at it.
So he deserves the Nobel.
Yes, I think. he
And so does
yes.
Kim.
And so does Kim.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Wait. That confuses me. How
Okay.
can a leader who kills his own people,
Mm-hmm.
who starved his 25 million citizens, who's disrupted and brought a threat to the world using nuclear armaments to come into a brink of a nuclear war which is never contained?
Because he is the only one member of that Kim dynasty, which is dictatorial in
That
nature,
reached out.
and that volunteered
More-
to talk
To America.
peace.
More-
And this is to avoid war.
Go ahead, Joe.
Moreover, if the little rocket man threatened the world with his nukes, the Americans actually used it in this Second World War.
Sa bagay, no?
They used
America
it in,
actually ginamit. And killed people.
Oh,
millions.
a lot of people.
Gagamitin ito. They're not going to stop.
A lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of people, and then they use napalm and thing. I mean,
Why
you know,
do you think Mr. Kim did this? What do you think is the reason? I mean, just a month, 2 months ago, we all looked at the Hermit Kingdom with a crazy man, and then to the point, it was called the Rocket Man. Now, why the sudden turnaround?
Well,
Doesn't that make you curious? What made this guy all of a sudden turn around and said, "I'm a nice guy. I'm going to talk to everybody"?
Yeah.
Why?
Okay,
the-
Joe?
well,
Well, of course, it's all speculative.
Yeah.
No one can answer this question anywhere.
Yeah.
Kim said, "I can join the nuclear club." What should the nuclear club be? Just the
Sila-sila lang. Oo.
sila lang, and then this and that. Why should not? And I can do it, and I can do it. And he worked very hard to come up with this little thing.
Well, there are
So,
two.
well,
In my view, there are two speculations, Number one, last year, September last year, according to the South Korean intelligence people, the test site, the nuclear test site,
Blew up.
blew up in the Pektu mountain range,
Yeah, I read that.
which is close to the Chinese border. And China was so worried, Of course, China didn't say anything about the explosion, the cave-in of the site. Neither did North Korea confirm or deny it. But China did watch out for the radiation leak. And therefore, one, it's going to be a minus for North Korea not to talk with Trump
Yeah,
or
with
talk
America,
peace.
yeah.
Number two, he's facing a famine.
So forced to goods, yeah.
The food export to North Korea is part of the sanction of the United Nations, which was also unanimously voted on by the Security Council of the
Yeah,
UN,
it was.
where China and Russia,
Voted
the
for
former
it. Yes.
former allies, the allies of North Korea, voted for it. Unanimous. So these three factors, I think, pushed Kim to say, "Okay, I will talk." So
a
although it was
33-year-old spoiled brat who calls himself God is vulnerable to international pressure, does not seem likely, does it?
well, if it is going to cause him some internal problems, yes, I would say yes.
This is a guy that's brought up in Europe.
Yeah, Switzerland. Doon nag-aral, di ba?
Switzerland. He speaks some multi-language, he loves basketball, etc. And I don't think, I may be wrong, but I don't think that this thing just happened overnight. This
Brewing
is
to over the
a
years.
long
Yes.
strategic plan involving more players than Kim.
Ayun.
Now, there is another
So,
speculation.
that-
biglaan to.
Look
This is
at-
not-
Look at what happens if this will produce the U.S. Going back to the West Coast, bringing all of its fleet. Who will benefit? A lot of people will benefit in the area. China will benefit.
Well,
in the
even America, they
area.
will save a hell of a lot of money, as Trump
Save
says.
a lot of money. Save a lot of money, and then maybe Taiwan will have to go one of these days.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a congruence of a lot of factors here that supported the decision of Kim to go. So it was not the
Okay.
spur of the moment.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to take a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand this may go above your head, but so do those rockets that were fired some time ago. These rockets, these nuclear armaments are just above our head, and a lot of times it will go over and we will not necessarily understand it. Now, to make it relevant for you, in the second half of this program, we're going to talk about how it affects us. Of course, we have our leader that the rest of the world think is a killer. But nevertheless, he is still our democratic. Ano ba sinabi ni Sakur, Stephen Sakur, isang araw? 70%, 79%, my gosh, rating. Any democratic Western world can't even come to half of that. And yet the Liberal Party, including the crazy, says, I hear voices. Isn't that what the madmen say when they're incarcerated, kinakausap sila ng mga madilim na demonyo sa utak nila. Ang tawag, may tama na. So, stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll try to make it even more interesting instead of going over your head. We'll be right back.